Hello everyone, we are back here again with another talk. This time we're going to talk a little bit about the Bodyhood Brawl League Season 3 and the rules that Game Night has not yet revealed. He says that he has been cooking up some rules so far and he is going to read them later for some discussion, but preemptively we are here today to discuss a little bit about the format and how one could improve that. And with me today, I have Hole-Poker.
Yeah, hi guys.
We also have Kittenpaw
Hello, everybody.
and Riorren.
Hello.
So it's the same people that we had for the previous talk here. And I want to reiterate here that we are in no way trying to impose ourselves on the Bodyhood Brawl League. It's all up to the community itself who decides the rules, etc. We're just here to give some feedback and to reinforce that view. I hereby forwarding a quote by Game Night himself. You guys can see it in the channel, saying that he did actually want us to give him some feedback. So here we are, and we're gonna structure this talk a little bit more, see if we can stick to some talking points, and let me just lay down the framework here, what we're trying to do. So during this talk, we're hopefully going to come forward with a rough estimate of what would be a decent system for the next league. That's a better one than we have now, and the difficulty lies in finding a system that makes sure that whoever loses the various games does not fall too far behind, and whoever wins is actively rewarded for winning as well. And that's the difficulty. Do you have any solution, Hole-Poker?
Are we starting up with me, are we? Um, well, it's tough coming up with another system now that it feels like this system that we have is quite ingrained so far, like getting some extra PvPs if you lose, and so on. What I really like would be to have a change in when it comes to like voluntary routing. Because as it stands, I feel like the reason that like winning players are losing a bit is because they can't really get the objective when they win. And that's mostly due to that once the opponent, when he gets just like like below his morale gauge, they'll voluntary route instantly. And it really makes it so getting the optional objective is really difficult, almost impossible sometimes. So my kind of suggestion would be to change when the character, the other, when the opponent gets to voluntary route. I think we touched upon this in the last discussion as well. I think there's a very good point to implement.
We did indeed, and we seem to have started off. Let's make that our first discussion topic here. There are some flaws, as we have been seeing in this current league. We have players that, despite the rules, which say that you have to try and win your game and put the best team you can onto the field at all times, we do have players that systematically do not do that for very tactical reasons, and that's because we are not really rewarding people for winning in many cases. Do you see any particular flaws that you want to bring up, or maybe your own point of view on this particular subject, Riorren?
Well, I'm probably one of the newest guys in this, but I could see what fail for in it. For example, when I was fighting Fenrir not too long ago, and I don't want to talk bad about it, but he's at the bottom of the league, of our league, and his warband rank is rank 6. And even though I've won a lot more matches and I've come out a lot better, if I should look at the scores, my warband is only rank 5. So that means that I am behind an entire warband level. That doesn't feel like it's working. I don't know what should be done because I don't have the experience to come up with a solution, but that doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah, and it also transfers into levels in a way. I think that it's a little bit of a disappointment that Einar is not gonna join us from Division 1 into the upper division as we switch. since he has arguably the most powerful warband in the entire first division right now, with many high levels and lots of gear owing to his many losses. And he has been capitalizing on that really well. Do you have something to add, Kittenpaw?
Yeah, so I know we talked a little bit even before this. I know you have 3 out of action. You've had a pretty good go of it. Experience with level 10s, mine as well. We've been able to kind of make do with some deadlies and brutals, which has been brought up. I remember someone saying at some point, "Oh, let's just do normals," but I feel like you and we've had to kind of do those, and this is where Riorren or others, like probably Chris Cardiac, and if you look at it statistically, but they're maybe having more out of actions than you or I, so it's like a struggling victory. I know we've been able to kind of make do because of some more of our experience, but yeah, there's got to be some kind of solution to the victors that the economy's barely getting by, while at the same time trying to help people recover. So
Yeah, that's
I would
a very good point.
One point I just remembered this while Hole-Poker was talking. I mentioned threshold. I don't know if that's for this subject or right now or whatever, but you don't have to keep it at 40%. So, when there's only 5 units at rank 0, 40%, that's what, 2, 3 out of action. You could see the scores early on. And they're bloodbaths. So, my suggestion was, why don't we just up the route threshold to 60% or so less units have to die before. So you actually have a fun battle, but less units are getting injured. I don't know if that could be part of the solution.
Yeah, it probably could. Probably could. You're touching on something that you did indeed suggest, and we can discuss it a little bit later on and see if that's part of the solution here. And indeed, I do think that some of the more experienced players here, we are getting by and keeping up only because we managed to get the secondary objectives and play deadlists. And if you do have many victories that are very close fought, 5-4 victories, you are often falling behind, and I think that's a problem. But let's be a little bit productive here and start in one end and work ourselves through the rules as they are right now. And one of the first rules I want to talk a little bit about and see what you guys think is the veteran points. As right now you do get 5 veteran points and you can sign them in any way you choose. And it's the reason because we have 5 veteran points, because if you're a completely new player and haven't completed any kind of Steam objective, then 5 veteran points is the maximum that you have available. That's why it's set at 5. Should we maybe reduce this or do something else with it? Because I feel that part of why players that are experienced in this game are getting further ahead is because they know which veteran points to pick compared to new players, and then they tend to get another advantage. What do you think? Opening it up to everyone.
Yeah, I think a big limiting factor from what I've seen in the discussions has been the wordstone delivery time. And I thought about, that'd be a great one. I think that's a veteran point to make it 1 and then 3 days. I wish everyone had at least, let's say 7 points, so everyone could just take that. I think that'd take a little bit of pressure off. I don't know if that's something that could be done somehow.
Yeah, personally, I suggested this earlier when we talked before this broadcast that maybe we should actually take away veteran points altogether to limit this, or alternatively make sure that everyone only gets to use 2 veteran points and they must pick the 2 wordstone ones. So everyone gets 13 days to complete a wordstone shipment.
It would put off some pressure as well, like when it comes to newer players, because I know that New Year's Cat, for example, and some other players have had some difficulty with the wordstones, and like it's been pretty tough getting those out. So I'm really getting like an extra few days, like I think could help a lot, because it's especially now like in the early stage of the game, like you don't get too many days to complete those those missions and get the wordstone. it can become quite, maybe even stressful at the end there to get them in. So yeah, I'd agree with this idea. I think it's a good suggestion. To maybe only to see to that everyone invests in some extra Wordstone days.
And it does help with gold accumulation too. I think Kittenpaw especially says that the biggest problem everyone has right now and has always had is trying to get the gold in this particular format. And partly that's because you get Wordstone shipments all the time, and Wordstone shipments pay a lot less gold than just sending it to the factions.
So I would just add, a big limiting factor. You can give me all the days in the world, but I get 1 PVE, So people that are winning, just anybody, even 2. It's hard to I don't know if there's a solution there where you say do 2 if you won, 4 if you lost. I don't know what's the happy number there. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something to take up. So maybe mixing with veteran points could be an idea here, but it's only a very small thing. There are so much more bigger things that we could talk about. One thing is maybe part of the point system. Right now the leagues are structured such that you get 3 points for winning, and then you get 1 point for each kill that you do. Is that something that you would want to see changed?
Go ahead, Riorren.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's kind of working. Although I haven't seen any other leagues or tournaments, so I can't really say much about this. There just needs to be an incentive of why you want to be higher up in the points, like a reward for being in the top 3 position or the first position. For example, you could give them a veteran point or something.
So I would have something to add on that. And I'm just sitting here thinking about it. You can reward doing secondary objectives. Say you get 2 points for doing that. I think everyone here will agree we all despise crush their will. So I think it'd be cool to limit it to just Wordstone Rush. That's kind of the point of Mordheim. Get that Wordstone. Do the killing one. But if you just say, okay, only secondary mission for everybody is Warpstone Rush. If you're the big dog and you get all the Warpstone, then you get also, say even if you lose, you can get 2 points just for doing that. I think that's pretty neat.
One issue I would see with that is that there is never enough Wordstone to really, if you can get the Wordstone both of the players, then it's usually when it's 45% of the Wordstone that you need to get, but often it's 55%.
They do that based off of positioning. I've seen that, of course, but I don't know how they determine the ratio.
I also feel like if we would limit the amount of objectives, like the different ones, we'll be losing some variety. Like getting Crush the Will sometimes really, even though it's difficult, it changes the game dramatically. And I kind of like that variation, going into a game not really knowing, and then I'll have to adapt depending on what I get. I kind of like that part of the game.
I would just ask openly, has anyone completed that in PvP?
I did it once against Valentine on the very last unit that I got to move before he routed.
I was very close in a game. I think it was versus, I can't quite remember. It's one of my most early games that I played. I think it was my second game probably. And I remember that I was running with my captain, and I was 1 turn away from getting it into my wagon. And then I didn't really think that much about voluntary routing then, but that kind of made my mind spoke. So my opponent just voluntary routed just before I was about to get my turn with my captain to move it into my wagon.
Yeah. So say you're someone that's succeeding, and I think you kept getting them, Karond, Crush Your Wills. This ties back to the warband ranks. It's it can be tough to gain momentum if you keep getting bad luck and draw Crush Their Wills. you kind of fall into a hole that way too, I think.
Well,
that's true.
it is a game of like random occurrences. You know, anything can happen. And yeah, I guess Crush the Will, it is a real bummer, but it's, you know, there is still like a few maps where it's very doable, where you paths aren't too far away from each other and so on. I don't think it's an impossible one. It's definitely one, like probably the hardest one though. But
What if you what if you turn it around a little bit? I think one issue is that if you both do Words Don't Rush, one of them is always gonna fail. But what if you make sure that the player who is the away player always has Words Don't Rush and the home player always has Marked for Death?
yeah,
Would
Yeah,
that help?
and I think linking it to points, you know, it'd be different. So we were talking about in general, we haven't talked about it yet, but how do you keep people interested? And you know, that could perhaps be a way is, hey, I lost, you know, but I still can get the 2 points, let's say, you know. So I think it keeps interest.
Is it necessary though? Because if you get the second objective, you get a lot more XP. You get plus 3 XP on every single unit, and you get bonus loot. So since we have progression, isn't that a reward in itself?
Definitely.
Yeah, but you know, it gets back to risk and reward. Yeah, do you bring out your better units like we talked about, or better equipment to try to get those? I don't know. Yeah, it would all depend upon your ranking and trying to make a deadline, or like point deadline, like, oh, I need to get 6th place like we're doing right now.
Well, I agree with Riorren in that, you know, accounting for kills, etc., and plus 3 points for each win, it seems to be working because, you know, people who are winning a lot, and even in the middle part of the game, like if you have 6 losses and 5 wins, or 6 wins and 5 losses, you tend to be organized so that the person who has 6 wins is slightly higher. That has been the case so far, but I would actually propose this to you guys, see if you like it. What if we did away with kills entirely as a point system, and if you win a game, you get 3 points, and if you let's see. Okay, so if you win a game with more than 3 kills than your opponent, you get 3 points. If you win a game and you are much closer, you get 2 points, and the loser gets 1 point. And if you lose a game with more than 3 kills in between you, you get 0 points. And then you can add some rewards after that, like the players who get 0 points are the only ones who get an extra PvE mission.
yeah, that would actually, I like that idea a lot, because it's really like when you see like the types of player that we have in the tournament, you'll have the players who are, you know, getting the objective done in both the PvPs and the PvEs, and then you have some players who only get in the PvEs and so on. And it's really the players who can't get the objective done sometimes in the PvEs as well that really suffer, and those that really need some extra, you know, an extra push along the way. And with this system, I feel like you would be able to maybe reward a more specific group of players, and I think that could be really beneficial in like controlling how people, you know, the rewards that people are getting based on what they do and how well they play.
Personally, I see that it's a good system to have, so that you can reward players that get higher up as well and differ them a little bit between them, like the object. Yeah. Kittenpaw.
My worry, just thinking, is, you know, morale and the roles it plays between warbands, you know, with undead versus sister. You know, I think we all saw Ainur learn his lesson with high morale. You know, where I think that will shift the strategy a bit to, hey, maybe I want to survive to get my kills. I don't know. And I don't know if just average players will think about those versus others, you know.
I mean, my objective with this was that if you get a point for playing a close game, and the points actually matter in some way due to rewards for winning or getting enough points, if that matters in some way, then people are motivated to try and win most of the time. And if you are not keeping up, that you get another reward to try and catch up. But it shouldn't be that you feel that you can just toss a game and don't really lose anything on it, because if you do toss it enough, you only get 0 points and you're losing out on the scoreboard, and you want to be high on the scoreboard. That was the general idea that I had with this, at least.
Well, the problem is still that what should we give as a reward?
Oh yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I mean, that's definitely worth talking about. And you mentioned one idea here, that you could get an extra veteran point for someone at a specific place, and if you only get one veteran point, like if we play with the idea that you can only get the 2 Wordstone ones to start with and you don't get anything extra, there is a little bit of space there. Everyone can still get +3 veteran points, and you can use them as rewards. Like the top 3 players get an extra veteran point, and that's not too much. That's just 5% cheaper skills or something, but it's still worth striving for.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea. Like, the better you play, the more you get to invest into the veteran points, because it is like a quite a big thing getting librarian, or something similar like a scholar. Like, it makes a difference. So it would definitely be like a goal that people would strive towards. At least I would.
We should probably limit librarian in this case, I think, because otherwise I think the leader or whoever gets the extra veteran points, they tend to get too far ahead because of all of the enchantments, no?
Maybe things like scholar or other things might be the only ones you can choose. Maybe librarian would be too game changing.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I feel like that would be the only veteran point that really makes a huge difference. Like getting a bit extra gold and so on, that makes a difference, but not a huge one. But getting enchantments is so much harder. So yeah, you might be right. Librarian might be a bit too good, and we might have to restrict that. But
yes,
I think all the other ones are up for grabs.
The mastered librarian, you restrict that.
Well, the ones who will go for these this goal, like getting an extra veteran point, they will all choose librarian, I think.
Yeah.
It's clearly the best.
Always been like the league is like a precursor to me. Like the league is like, this is setting everything up for round 2, which is the tournament. For me, the big reward is the tournament, and getting good seeding and having your warband where you need it and how you have it set up. I think that should be kind of the big reward there, is because this is all like preliminary, just building the units up, having fun. You want to win, just because it's a game, but I feel like I want to have the reward based in the tournament somehow.
Exactly. Let's actually switch to this and go onwards, because now we're talking about the point system for the league, and let's go on with the playoff system. And I know that you have some ideas there, particularly with buys and other kinds of rewards that you could also get in addition or along with, or however you want to say it, with the veteran points or other kind of rewards. And
yeah, it's funny. I remember talking to you a while back, and I just assumed there was no PvE between tournament matches. And in my mind, I like I said, I imagine everything's building up to the tournament, and then it's all hold bar. This is your band. Good luck. And that's where seeding would come into play. I'd obviously want to avoid 1 or 2 seed because, well, I probably will lose, or if I win, it'll be bloody. Or in between. So that's kind of how I saw the tournament. But I haven't even heard if it's PvE in between or not.
Yeah, we don't even know how the current playoff system is going to play out. I think what little I know of Game Night, I think that he might want to do the fun option, which is just do what he did with seeding the warbands to begin with. He gets all of our names into a big ball and then just draws the names. But then you have this problem right now in the upper division, for instance, that it doesn't matter where you end up or how you do, because as long as you can preserve your warband, like pull out some bad units against most opponents and then level up in between, then you can have a really good warband come the playoffs, and that's where it actually matters. So some kind of reward for the upper division or some form that goes with buys or extra rewards, I think that would be needed.
Yeah, there needs to be something worth risking my level 9 hero or level 10 leader or something like that. I don't just want to put them out just to win and then lose the tournament because he got killed.
Yeah, if it doesn't matter if you come in fifth or sixth, like why would you care about the last game? Then you just put up some bad units. So how would we want to organize sort of playoff system? What's the best system? How do you want to look like? The current system is just single elimination. It seems like with 16 players.
Posted. I've made it known that again. We're like, how do you keep interest? And I've decided that I think everyone should get in the tournament because I think what can happen is division, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to make it. Well, you're already having a miserable time because you're losing and you're losing units, and I just think maybe they'll drop out. So I think in the tournament can be beneficial.
But what's the incentive then? I mean, compared to like, imagine if I join the tournament, I decide I lose every single game because I put up level 0 units every time, and for all of the extra PvE games I just level up a perfect level 10 warband that I can just go through the playoffs with.
So again, that gets back to why I just assumed there was no PvE. So first of all, we all know like 32, 16, 8, 4, 2. That's like the magic number, right? So we have 24. So that leaves 8 players. Well, we've lost 2 or 1. You would have those 8 players doing play-ins. And with no PvE in between, well, that's more matches for you to get injured and recover from. And then, again, you're lower on the seeding. So once you get to that final 16 seed and you get to go against, the number 1 guy who's obviously going to be a good player. So I think that's a lot of the reward right there.
Yeah. I have another idea that I think that is, could work as well. If you divide the playoff stage, the last league or last stage, into like 2 groups, like an upper and lower again, you can find that an upper group could have like maybe they can lose 1 game but still survive, and they get like an extra chance to win. And then if you'll be placed into the lower division, you'll get eliminated right away when you lose. So you could give like the winning players like an extra chance if they have a bad day or a bad deployment. Like they'll get an extra chance to play, and that would be a really huge incentive, I feel, to getting higher and playing well and winning and so on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's like what we're talking about. I think that's where this all has to come from. Is the rewards need to be in the tournament part somehow.
I'm thinking like if an upper division player loses, he could be placed into the lower division. This is quite common, I feel. And then so basically, if you're placed into the lower division, you'll immediately get eliminated. And an upper division player, if he loses, he'll get placed in the lower division. And if he then loses, he gets eliminated in the playoff stage.
That's the double elimination playoff system.
Yeah, and I like that system. I feel like that would give incentive, like at least in some regard. You could probably find some other things to make it more beneficial to get, to play well and win as well. But that would be one way, at least.
What do you think of picking your actual playoff spot? I know that in some of the esports tournaments in various other games, they always have this big showdown before the playoffs where they actually get to, depending on their rankings, get to pick who their opponent is going to be.
I would also just add maybe say the map or deployment. That could be huge too.
Yeah, that could also be good incentives to.
I don't think deployment should be a thing we can choose because that would be too powerful. I would like to be able to choose the map though. I think that would be still relatively balanced, because there are some maps that like favor range or favor melee and so on. You can really like at least get a better chance of getting a bit of an edge on your opponent through choosing that. So yeah, I like
there's any reason you can't combine some of these ideas, So
yeah.
Can I ask you a follow-up question there, Hole-Poker? When you say the maps, do you mean only the maps that we are currently restricted to, which is Merchants Quarter and Nobles District, or do you actually mean the story maps too?
I'm thinking just Nobles and Merchants, but you could include more if you felt like it. Right now, I think those are the most balanced maps most of the time, so I think those are better options, as for now at least. Because some of the other story missions can have some some are really, really heavy melee fights, and some are, more of a ranged options.
As a ranged player, of course, you would say that.
Yeah, I really like, for example, like as a ranged player, I like nobles a lot. Nobles is a bit more open. It's easy to get some good vantage points and so on. I really like those maps. So if I could choose, of course I'd choose nobles, and it would be beneficial to me. So that will make, that would be a big incentive for me to really play and win. And I think that like when people really, if they know the maps and if they, if they start thinking a bit about them and checking them out and so on, they can really find some few maps that are really beneficial to them as well, and the band.
Karond, how does it work with picking your opponent? Would the number 1 seed pick first and then on down? Is that how it would work?
Yeah, they can do that. I mean, sometimes they do have, we have this, in our other tournament, the level 10 tournaments, you have this group system, and then they usually have enough players that they can go do another group system, and then they pick their opponents, etc. So you could do that.
Is that round by round or just to start? I would assume round by round, right?
Yeah, I mean, you get the highest seeds get to pick first.
So you win, and then let's say there's 16, then there's 8. The highest seed gets to pick the opponent again.
I mean, maybe you design a playoff tree with let's assume 16 players get to the playoffs, and then you have these different spots where everyone ends up, and then you just gets to pick where you start.
So you can look ahead who I would maybe be facing, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean also, you know what you could do to really bring a twist and something fun to it? You could give certain wild cards as rewards, like the person who finished first in the upper division, he gets to switch 2 players around or something. Yeah. I mean, that would be really evil.
I agree. I think all these things are really just add to why you want to win during the league.
Yeah, but and this will also be a fun element, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can have rivalries and
you can have rivalries.
I hate the undead. Let me kill the undead. Whatever reason you want to do.
For example, if I would have gotten that option, I would just I really don't want to face mercenaries right now. Hole-Poker, could you just go over there and face Trusing, please? Like in the first round of 16, that would be nice. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Mercenary versus mercenary, please.
Yeah, and then just at least one of them is gone. That would have been perfect. Yeah. Like imagine having that, or you can have something that's. I don't know. I mean, you can imagine certain things that you can come up with that would be fun rewards and that could shake things up a little bit after people have picked.
Yeah. You can even have like a bit of a random factor involved as well. Like this, there's like 6 different options that you might get as a reward for winning or being lucky in the top 3 players or whatever. And so you don't really know what you're going to get as a reward, but it'll be something good. Maybe you get to switch players around, maybe you'll get to choose a map. Like you can have different rewards. They're a bit random. Yeah, I like the random factor a lot.
You don't have to decide that, if Kittenpaw gets to the top spot of the upper division, that he gets to place his name first. You can just decide he gets to put down his name last. And he can just switch out any kind of guy that has already placed his name with his own, and then he places that guy on the empty spot.
Yeah.
Like that's basically the same thing, but that's also a very fun way of doing it.
So Riorren, what do you think about these things? Like, do you feel like there would be an advantage to you as a relatively new player, like being able to choose the map or being able to choose your opponent, which would be even more powerful, I believe?
I mean, choosing the map or choosing any final details that involve a strategy where you know the map and know the different deployment areas you can spawn in would maybe not benefit me that much, but definitely the one switching around or choosing where you end up on the leader or the playoffs. I would like that because I don't want to fight Karond, Kittenpaw, Hole-Poker, Trusing, or any of the other scary guys.
All right, just getting first then.
Yeah.
Easy.
It's easy.
Yeah, it's just you just have to beat those guys.
If I want to choose that, I can put all of you guys in the same row, so you all have to fight each other.
No, that's evil.
I would watch that.
What did you guys think PVE should be allowed during the tournament phase, or does that allow you to recover your wounds too much, if you will?
I think that's an excellent idea if you go by a system with buys. Like by that I mean, to clarify, that for example the top 4 spots they enter later in the tournament, and that's a classic way of doing it. And you do accumulate more injuries etc as you play, and then of course it's an advantage to be part later in the league. But I think it would be nice if everyone gets active right away, and some people don't have to wait.
Yeah. Only thing like with like skipping matches and getting less matches is that if you're still gaining XP from your matches, then you will, as a result of not getting as many matches, might fall behind like on the XP ladder. But that is not a problem if you've already reached level 10. But say you'll have a guy that
Well,
is
yeah,
quite level
that's
10 yet,
exactly
so
what I'm
like,
imagining.
Yeah.
We should all be pretty much done with our warbands with pretty high level reserves by then, in theory,
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Not the case for everyone, Like maybe some guys don't have a reserve, he'll lose him, and then he'll get a level 1 in. Like it could be quite some stuff that can happen.
What
that can really
what good is one PVE gonna do by your? What is this gonna be, like your 23rd match, 24? Like, oh, I got the level 0 to level 1. I should win the tournament now. I don't.
One problem I see with this, Kittenpaw, is that if you do buys, and say you do play-ins like for the last 8 players, then everyone needs to sit and wait for these players to play. And imagine if you have the same issues that we have now, that for example 2 players are unable to find time to play each other. They could potentially drag it out like 1 or 2 weeks, and then everyone has to wait for them again and over and over and over.
Yeah.
So you have less matches going on at the same time. I think that's the big drawback with that system. Otherwise, it's kind of
I think
nice.
Experience with I mean, it's crazy how tournaments can bog down, like the Mordheim Madness. The league, at least multiple people could, in theory, be playing at one time, but tournaments, yeah, it's just you and whoever's across from you have to find a time.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we do need to get this going. I saw him mention it, but we got to get it going because the tournament might take longer than people realize.
So just to clarify a bit, you guys want like the players that are not playing too well and maybe losing a bit, they'll play more matches. Is that what you guys are saying effectively?
Not that many. There's 24 of us, and you want to get to that sweet number of 16. So there'd just be like, you'd have 8 people. It'd be 4 versus 4, and the winners are now the seeds 12 to 16. Then you're there. You're done. Or would you have to? You might have to do one more playing round, I think.
Yeah.
Let's can we guys move on a little bit, and
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the league system and everything as well, because end up in an upper division that is currently rather pointless. All of the ones in the upper division get to the playoffs regardless of how they do, and there's no reward. And in the bottom division, the top 4 players get to the playoffs, and the rest are out of the tournament. Let's assume here that the next season will have exactly 24 players. How should a good system be organized? Should we still have 2 leagues like this, or just 1 league, or 3 leagues, and should we switch more often, or what's the perfect system? Do you have any kind of idea here?
I have a thing that I like to think, and that's really like more leagues to start off with. I feel is a good option because right now we had 2 leagues and we had quite a lot of players in each league, and we saw that it took a lot of time to get through those leagues. And it's because we have this kind of round robin system, where everyone has to play each other. I think it would be nice if we just like get a few more leagues going, and we'll split the all the people that are joining in a bit more, and that way like less people have to play less matches, sure, in each league, but it will be much quicker. I feel like instead of playing 12 players, you'll play 3 or 6 rather.
So is this more like I can relate as an American, the World Cup for soccer, right? Kind of like.
I can't say I'm too familiar.
Yeah,
but sure.
They do that.
Come on. Well, they have. I think it's teams of 4, and there's like.
Yeah.
Because
I really feel that a big problem with BBL as it stands is really like the amount of time it has taken to really go through all of the players. It's almost excruciating, and I feel like that's a big issue. It could very easily be resolved by just like splitting up the leagues a bit more.
I know you feel strongly about this too, Riorren, no?
Yeah, I must admit that I'm getting kind of tired of this league, to be honest. I mean, not in a negative way, but it's taking so long, and I have a lot of other things going on. And yeah, I don't even know how long I've been waiting for my next game.
We should state here that it's 6 days from into the future from this broadcast that we'll have seen 4 months, and we are still not done.
Yeah.
With the first 11 games, that is.
And that's
I think maybe, game night's being kind, but I think you do have to just say, hey, you lost. You had plenty of time. In the scheme of things.
What do you think about? I mean, that's one system that Hole-Poker proposed here, to divide everyone into groups of 4. What do you think of this system? Imagine that you have still the two leagues with 12 players in each, but you could play any player and not in a specific order. You just have to make sure that when you're playing your second game, you can only face someone who's also just only played one game.
I foresee chaos.
Yeah, but that has the advantage that the first games that you get to play, they are going to be done relatively quickly, and then you sort of go down, and then the two last players, they sort of have to play each other. I agree that that's going to be annoying for some people, but that could at least get people to play their games faster.
So you have to find your own opponent and then play with them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you have to find one opponent that has the same amount of games and then play them and then record a result.
But you're still limited by your slowest player at the end of the day, and that becomes the slowest player is slowing everyone down. That's the problem here.
Yeah. How should we speed them up?
But if they played like less games, say we only played 6 games, and we're like, then we'll be really cutting down the time by a lot. Imagine if BBL was like the first league was finished when we had like six battles fought PvP. Imagine how quickly we would be done with the first league. I mean, it would have gone much quicker, I believe, and I think that would have been nice.
So you want less overall games? That's your solution?
At the moment, it might be the best solution, because we can't have it taking this much time, and I think it's not going to be any easy fixes. Something has to go, and it might as well be the amount of matches that we play.
Well, I mean, it could also be that we go from 4 leagues to 2 leagues and then to playoffs. Then we should still have the kind of same amount of matches ish.
You can have like an early elimination round or something like that as well. Like there's a few options to like losing players otherwise, but that's not as nice. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
It's just hard. I just wish people would have stuck to the spirit of the rules. That's all I can say. Is you saw like you want to do one a week, and clearly a lot of people aren't able to maintain that. So I don't know. I just don't know how you find a solution to people across the world not getting their shit together. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, you're right. And I know we've been talking about this in Discord chat. Lots of people do have full working lives with families, etc., and they still manage to play it. And in a way, I don't mind if people have to like take 2 weeks to play one of their games, but I do mind if they're just going to go in and say, "Oh, I'm sorry that we're taking up everyone's time." Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, but can you please try and make up for it? Can you like in the next, if you're taking 2 weeks only to play one game, can you play two games in the next week or something, just to get it going, to catch up? That's what I would want to see. Like, so we keep to the spirit of the rules. I wish we had done that. If we had done that, we would have been down by the end of February, by the way.
Yeah.
Or literally just stick to the rules as punishment. Just, hey, you had a week, boom. I hate to do that, but that might have to be the solution.
But how do you balance that? Like, for example, if you... In our division, for instance, we had some troubles with more jacks early on, or David is trying, and then they were really slow to get going, and you sometimes had to wait for several weeks to get a game against them. And so, what you say, I should be punished because I could play a game at any time, but more jacks could not?
Yeah. It also gets back to the two PVEs. I don't think we've mentioned that. Mordheim can be a slow game, especially with 10 units playing methodically against the computer. There's some hidden time here that, just a couple hours off screen or off opponent that you have to kind of get through. And I don't know if the solution is in there somehow as well. I don't know.
If you don't, I think they introduced the PvE missions because they found that people who lost games, they never got any word stone to make their shipments.
Of course. But I know that's like a time sink in theory that, I only get 5 hours a week to play video games, and I have to do the two PVEs now. But I don't know the solution there either.
Of course, it's signing up if you have the time, but yeah, we don't reach much further to the conclusion. But do we have anything on how to structure the league, or is just these ideas floating around with nothing fixed, nothing that seems like a better choice?
When I signed up, it was just very random, and I saw the list, and I was like, hey, I see a bunch of North America players over there. Can I jump over to that other league? And Game Night switched me out. So I think there should be a solution can be kind of pre-discussing it, say on Discord or something, say, hey, what are your best hours, best availability, and try to make the leagues that way. I think that can help, because we said just split North America with Europe, but some people work night shifts, whatever. So I think it's just who can play at this time of day and make the leagues based off that beforehand somehow.
Or maybe even expand upon that and say, like, but which days can you also play? Like, if you're a player that can only play during the weekends at a particular time, then maybe that might not work with 1 week, one game a week.
Yeah, I'm kind of ironic, exactly. I actually usually can't play on the weekends, so yeah, exactly. Something like that.
Yeah, but we do have players that can only play like at a certain between like a 2-3 hour interval during the weekends and only in some weekends, and and that's part of what we're seeing.
That's just they probably weren't in the spirit of the rules then.
I think that some players really underestimated the amount of time we'd have to like put into this tournament. Like people knew it would take time, but maybe not this much time. And now people are really like, it has taken almost too much.
Yeah, I mean, we would have, like, imagine if we'd followed the rule, we would have been done by February for the first, and then we would have been done by the end of April. And then by the end of April we would have started the playoffs, and then in the beginning of June we would have had the playoffs done with. Yeah. Like, that would have been really good, and that's still a long time. That's still, a bit more than 6-7 months or something like that, probably, coming up to it all.
I did kind of like Kittenpaw's suggestion when it comes to like just like checking people's availability, because it would really help to just like see like, okay, you can only play 2 hours a week during this very specific interval. Are you sure you want to be part of a progressive tournament like this? Like, it's, you gotta sometimes make hard decisions, like if you really can join in, because this is gonna take some time, and you can't join in if you're gonna slow and like make people's experiences worse. So I like this checking of like people's availability, and that's also like pairing people to get more effective games going might be worth going into, like, take a look at. I don't know how well it will work, but maybe it could work. I don't know. I just really like the first part when you just like check people's availability to see that, okay, yeah, you have enough time this, like, usually in a week, so you should be good.
Worst thing comes to worst, then how do you deal with players that actually leave?
Oh yeah, leaving.
Yeah, that's obviously been a problem. This is why Hole-Poker's here, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and Ainer. And Dave is trying his not getting a replacement because it's too late.
I think that's the worst.
As well.
Yeah, and Riorren too. See? We have lots of players.
Getting a replacement in is a good thing. Like, if you can get another player joining in, that's perfect. If you can't, Like the thing that we have at the moment with Game Night's suggestion was like you get like 3 points and a PVE, and that's it. Well,
Yeah.
that's the current thing, right? If you can't get replacement.
Yeah, and that's not a good solution if you're trying to
No.
chase
So
scores, because that means you will actually you
You'll
might.
get less points, and no matter what happened, like if you'd played that game, you'd either be getting 2 PVEs or a win, a possible objective maybe there, and a PV. So like you're not getting anything really good there. You're getting less points because you would have gotten some kills at least in a match. It's like I don't see, like it's really punishing the players randomly. I feel that we meet this player.
are you supposed to do 2 PVEs? Like pretend one was the battle and then do a PVE after, or you just get 1 PVE?
I'm not sure actually.
I don't even remember.
I'm
one
not
PvE.
tournament GameNet I think has been a bit vague on this, and I don't know if he wants to be consistent. Like I talked to him about this, and he said that, well, the only real solution is just to hope that no one else quits, because whoever faces David is trying now, it's going to be the same for everyone in the lower division. They just get points, so it doesn't matter. But imagine if another player like Muir's Cat jumps out and he has already played 3 games, then the players who have faced him, they have a huge advantage compared to everyone else. And I don't know, will game night be consistent, or and that's what I feel we need. Like we need some kind of idea here, so that you can always be consistent with players leaving. Maybe you can save the warband file and give it over, or you have a replacement file, or you have a system of someone can play a certain amount of PvP
so
to catch up.
to kind of move things along, since we've been talking about it a bit, along those same lines, I mentioned earlier, what do you think about starting with rank 5 warbands?
Good point. Let's see what everyone thinks. Riorren?
I think that could be extremely interesting. I would love to try that. If you get to start with a level 5 warband.
Yeah.
Well, so should I mention a little bit about why I would say? I mean, I talked about that off video, but the reasoning being, A, you get all the units you want immediately and can design your warband the way you want, and B, you get pretty soon. It's been this race to rank 5. You kind of eliminate that. So
You sort of blacked out there when your microphone. Can you say that again?
sorry, yeah. So A, you get to build your warband the way you want it with the units you want immediately. And then the second point being, you usually on the first market rotation, I think, get blues and purples and stuff. So everyone should kind of hit the same power levels at the same time. So you eliminate a lot of the imbalances, I feel.
That's really good point here, because as you start with level 0 warband, it's just a big race to get to level 5, because it's such a massive difference in what loot you get, and people who are not at level 5 early on, they do fall behind quite fast, and that's especially problematic if you do get more PVs as you lose, because that means that you just get further and further ahead on getting the best loot. And I know that's something that you have experienced, Riorren, for instance.
Sorry?
About falling behind because you're winning games, and then everyone else can get to level 5 faster than you. And that means
yeah,
you get less
definitely.
loot.
Yeah, when I was level 4, I was facing against level 5 or actually level 6 warbands at one point, so that was extremely annoying. Mostly because I also had extremely bad luck with secondary objective. I got crushed at will and marked for death on some guys that I couldn't get to before they voluntarily routed.
Yeah.
One big advantage to this also for Kittenpaw. Oh, did you want to say something, Hole-Poker?
Oh no, it's fine. Keep going.
Yeah, one big advantage that you have with this particular system that Kittenpaw proposed is also that. I missed it. I had.
I would say for the purists who are like, oh, I like that you build young blood to warlock to I like that. Well, you could just reset the rules. Say start with a rank 5 warband, but say, oh, you can only bring a captain, a young blood, and 3 henchmen. And then when you hit rank 6, you can bring warlock. If you know what I mean, just shift it upwards. If people want to keep way we did it with rank 0s. You could do that, just start it at rank 5 and start the
And-
rules that way.
And then still would get the benefits when it comes to balancing, because that's the
Yeah, 'cause
real
I
issue,
think
I feel.
level
short
10
beams
players,
and-
like unlocking enchantments and having purple weapons and level 10 units with max skill, that does make a big difference that the rating doesn't necessarily always show. So if you could try to level at least that as quickly as possible, I think that would help.
I just remember what I was going to say here. It's that it also has the advantage that you have much less rules, because right now you do have the rules that you can only use impressives as you get to level 5. That was one of the rules, but it was taken away after a while because that's automatic in the game. But you have other rules that you can only hire DLC units as you get to Warband rank 4, and you have some other rules that you have to always match the numbers that your opponent is bringing. Like if he's only bringing 3 heroes, you can only bring 3 hero slots yourself, and that is immediately eliminated because at level 5 you already have all of the starting slots, as you said, so you get much less rules in the system too.
I feel like this is a very strong thing that could be really nice for the next tournament. Like it seems to just have so many advantages to start at 5 over like 0. This is really something that I personally like to see for the next tournament.
2 things. First of all, don't you have to get a warband to rank 5 first? I think maybe that some people were literally brand new to the game, so maybe that was one reason.
Yeah, that's actually true. That might be the case. I don't know about that.
Yeah, and then I've already forgot my point too. What's happening?
Collective.
Collective
minus 5 XP. Amnesia.
Yeah, and if we're talking about having smaller leagues and less games, then I think starting at rank 5 is more important too, because you won't have as many games to get to rank 5. So
yeah.
Can I ask you guys about another thing here, since we're drifting onto it? We are almost done with the complete rule set that we have today here and criticizing it from various points. There are some other restrictions here. What do you think of them? Specifically, that you can only have 1 DLC unit active at a time, and you can only bring them in at Warband rank 4. That's going to be done away if we start at rank 5. So only 1 DLC unit at a time. Obviously, the rule only really concerns Globadiers, I think. And second, that you cannot use hired swords. Is this something that should change?
I don't really feel like it should change, because I feel like that hired swords are an extremely big advantage if you save up gold for it, because you save both time and money on the skill points. It's an instant fully maxed skilled out level 9 or 10 guy if you buy him.
Yeah, and a problem with the hired swords, of course, is that your veteran level decides the quality on the hired swords. And we have some new players that don't have as high of a veteran ranking, so they don't get as good hired swords.
There are a few set hired swords, aren't there? Like the 0 cost level 7 ones and so on. When do you get those?
You only get them for the DLC units if you
Okay.
have the DLC.
I was thinking if
you get those with warband faction ranking. Like you get a free leader with one of the factions that's level 4 or 3 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true, but I think it's unrealistic that you can actually get to a Wordstone faction level 4 in this form. Like originally, Game Night said that we were going to play 22 games and then 22 games and then have the playoffs, but that was completely cut down in half because that was a gross overstatement of people's ability to play. Yeah, that was a really
I think hired swords just seems a bit too inconsistent to be a part of the team.
Yeah, they're too RNG, also. Yeah. Oh, this one's great, but he's missing a leg, It's just too random, honestly.
And then sometimes the player just gets like a level 7, like with no injuries. It's going to be like...
Yeah, like a stud, yeah.
I think that's good, because for all of the reasons we mentioned, why hired swords are not here. I know some players that are listening in here might wonder about that, but what about the DLC units? The restriction right now is only 1 at a time active. What do you feel about that?
A good rule. I thought it was a good rule. I'll just say that. I get it. It makes sense.
All right, and that's all we have to say about that.
Yeah, it's like
apparently.
totally quiet. Like there's a few ideas you could like lob around, like restricting certain DLC units to certain warbands and so on to equal the balance. But I don't know. I kind of like the simplistic rule set for BBL so far when it comes to like hide source and DLC and so on. And I kind of like simplicity.
I mean, we do the same. We do the same thing in level 10 tournaments, so that's why I'm like, yeah, no big deal.
Actually, just yeah, but we in the level 10 tournaments we're talking about restricting, and I think that's where Hole-Poker's idea comes from here, because you guys aren't you. We talked a little bit about this in the former broadcast, but you know that you're gonna face a lot of Globadiers, right?
Yeah.
Every single
Yeah.
destruction player is gonna bring a Globadier.
Hey, immaculate flesh, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And witch hunters, you know, can just like
Yep.
bring up
Hole
all the-
poker won't like it. Yeah, hole poker won't like it.
I'll be
Fuck 'em.
struggling, all right. Yeah.
No, but I mean this in the we don't have the same problem with the other three DLC units. I think. I think the Wolf Priest is probably overrepresented on the order side too. But if we would restrict DLC units to certain warbands, like maybe if the Skaven are the only ones that can get the Globadier, would that actually do something?
That would give
yeah.
Skaven a lot more power.
Maybe that's needed considering how they are doing right now. Although,
Yeah,
of course, the player
Skaven-
who's plays them plays a big role. But
Skaven are always kind of like not really doing too well. They have like they don't have the best weapon selections and so on. They have a few things that just like isn't too good for them. Low toughness max and so on. They can't really get exhaustion that easy, especially in progressive tournaments where you can't get terms. And so on. So I really feel like they would need a slight push, especially for like the later stages of the tournament. And if you would restrict like Poison Globadiers to be only, you know, solely Skaven for Skaven warbands, that would be a nice push towards them gaining some power.
I personally like this because if we play at level 0 again with most of the units and level 5 as a warband, then impressives start out really strong compared to other heroes, except for the Rat Ogre.
Yeah.
That is true.
That's also, you know, yeah, I forgot we kind of talked about that. I think that also you see poor maidens or sisters of Sigmar and other in Chaos doing kind of poorly. But if they could get their two impressives, probably the two best impressive, you know, we've gone back and forth on that.
Yeah.
But, you know, two pretty powerful impressives, in other words, that could probably help them with their rankings. I think that would be another nice benefit.
And another thing that
do you think that restricting is a good idea? Hole-Poker, sorry if I interrupted you.
Yeah, I think it could be a good idea. Other thing, like when it comes to like warband balance, like when you look at like witch hunters and so on, like especially witch hunters, I think that I've been like looking a bit on, like I think that I'll also think that we'll be seeing a lot of. It's like wolf priest plus warrior priest, you know, stacking some really high buff spells that really makes them really, really tough. And I feel like if you would restrict so they maybe won't be able to get the wolf priest, for example, you'll not be seeing that. And it's generally considered like that the witch hunters are the strongest warband going into this progressive tournament. Like taking away a bit of their potential for super buffing certain units, I think that could really balance it out on the order side as well. It's not only the poison globe.
How would we restrict the DLC units to the various warbands then? How should they be restricted?
I think there is like a general idea already, like Poison Wing Globadiers to Skaven. You'll give the Doomweaver to Chaos, and then Dead they will go without because they're quite powerful as is. And then you'll do the same for the other side. You'll get to see mercenaries. They can get a Wolf Priest. Sisters gets the Smuggler, and then the Witch Hunters get none as well.
That's the exact same system that we're discussing in the level 10 tournament right now.
It's a solid system, and it's because it's been like already discussed and thought out, and it's a very good and solid way of doing it, I feel, if you were to restrict the DLC heroes.
What do you guys think? I kind of like it, since I also feel that since I'm playing Undead, I do know that they have a lot of power with terror, etc. And not having DLC units, especially the Globadier, might help players to deal with them a little bit more. What do you think, Kittenpaw?
I think it also it's relevant but not relevant. We talk about the warrior priest being unlocked on the order side for mercenaries and sisters, and how that kind of the players have noticed. Oh, that kind of broke the game a bit, and you could say the same thing with the DLC. You know, it used to be when us old farts started, it was just sisters could heal, and then suddenly you got this warrior priest on that side and the globadier on the other side. Everyone's healing. Of the dynamic. I don't think they thought much about that per se. So by manually limiting it, I think it kind of fixes things in a lot of ways.
It's at least a thing that game night should consider for BBL3, I feel, because it is when it comes to like the balance between warbands, it could really improve.
And it's a minor thing. We're not like talking about. It's pretty easy to follow.
Yeah,
the rule right there.
And if you take away some other rules, it gives you room to just this simple rule.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Is there something else that we need to discuss before we go on with? Yeah, wait. We have one more point actually. Is these 2 points is what can we do to help out people that lose PvPs, and what can we do to give people that win the will to win and the motivation to keep winning. We talked about this a little bit earlier, like I was suggesting that the extra PV is only going to people who lose by a certain degree.
Yeah, you start. You go ahead and start this. We've all been starting. You start. We'll follow your lead.
Yeah, I thought that if you do the point system that I suggested, then you could have it so that the players that lose by 3 kills or more, they get an extra PV so they can catch up. And then you sort of try and give rewards depending on the ranking people end up in on the league tables as you switch between the various leagues. So you can give out veteran points. Yes, you could maybe give out an extra PVE somewhere as a really big thing, or you can give some specific playoff advantages. So you can, or even for the next league, if you go into next, like you get to pick all of your maps in every one of those leagues or something. If it's only going to be 3 games, it's not that big.
That's pretty. I was just sitting here thinking, like, while you were saying that, well, what if you get like a PVE based off injuries? Say you roll a dead unit. It's like if you have a rank 5 or above and they die, you get an extra PVE. I mean, that's kind of random and kind of a fine detailed rule, but I don't know.
It's also kind of hard to
manage, I guess.
Yeah, and then
it's kind of hard to manage. I feel like
who dies also plays a big part now. If it's you level 9 leader or you level 1 henchman, like that's
where we're going though. That's part of the problem though. How do you if you had this many kills or that many, you get a PV. It's hard to find a simple rule that works. I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, but that's why we're here talking about it. 1 hour going into this. That's exactly
I don't have that much to complain about with the 1 for a victory and 2 for a maybe. We talked about how time's been a problem. If you make it 2 for the victor and 3 for the loser, maybe that helps. You got to find that special. How I think that's why I get back to, and no one seems to like the idea, but why not just make the route threshold 60%, so you have less people getting injured to begin with,
Yeah, but is that in combination with extra PVs for certain players? Or just as a leveling thing?
And if you have less getting injured, you should have less people becoming crippled per se, so you should have less reason for PVEs. And I get the other point for PVEs is wordstone delivery. I get that, so you have to have them. So I don't know. It's if you could race at later stages in the tournament. So again, I think you would start like if you only have 5 versus 5, route threshold 40. Then if it's 7 versus 7, it's 50. If it's 10 versus 10, it's 60. To try to make it still entertaining, but only have certain like 3 or 4 units falling out of action each time.
Well, then how do we feel about voluntary routing then? Like, can they just route as soon as it goes below?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah, I think I'll stick to like Kittenpaw's suggestion that time as well. Like just you can volunteer route when it is your turn, like when you get your first character, because it's at the moment it's very hard to complete some objectives.
Did you know you could change that in the combat settings? If that's what you're asking, Riorren, you can actually adjust the route threshold in the PvP menu.
No, I was thinking about, do we allow people to route as soon as it hits, or should they wait
Yeah.
until it's their turn?
I feel like that's a big part.
I think
Yeah,
they should
because-
be allowed to route exactly when they want to, because what do you do with a person that is not following the rules? Like, imagine that I'm playing Kittenpaw, I'm obviously crushing him, and then I'm just about to complete my secondary objective and he quits. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not allowed to do that. Yeah, but what can you do about it? Do you want to play again? Like, how do you work that out?
So I think it gets back to why was that a problem? Well, it was a problem because the people that were winning, that was like their chance for XP, so they didn't get it, and that kind of it can be upsetting. So if you eliminate
Exactly.
the problem, then yeah, I think it shouldn't be whenever shouldn't be an issue. So you have to solve the other problem first.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think that if you have to expect that people do follow the rules of the tournament if they agree to joining in.
But they aren't right now.
Those things are a bit more, like time and so on. Like getting the time to play matches is a bit different. Like when you are well in game and playing.
Yeah, but I mean, players are losing intentionally to get a strategic advantage.
Yeah, but that's like before the game. When you're like set into a game, I don't know. I feel like the situation is so different that you can't really compare them. Just because players at the moment are kind of like go, but it's not strictly like against the tournament ruling to do this, is there? Like
It is.
The rule set isn't like you can't do this. It's kind of vague, right? It's like a
Sort
gradation of what you can do.
Well, GameNet says that he wants everyone to try to win all the time and try and put the best team on all the time within common sense. And if you, for example, take off all of your equipment so that you stand no chance of winning, or just put in a few level 0 henchmen, take your flag and run at the opponent and use a fleet to make sure that they get damaged and killed so you can route faster, then you're not really, following the rules, are you?
Yeah, it's still like pretty vague, like where the line goes of where you're actually against the rules and where you're still like, you're fine.
It's back to why I want to eliminate excuses. I think that's why the rule set has to kind of be like, well, I get it. You have an excuse now. I'm so crippled. This, that. That's why I'm doing it. So if you could try to make it where they have less excuse to do that, the better.
Yeah.
So.
Agreed.
And the big thing about that was making sure everybody only got one PvE. Or what?
That's why I was thinking rank 5 warband. So then everyone's getting blues and purples already. So then it's like, well, yeah, bring your blues and purples. You'll just get more in the next market. You kind of lose that excuse to bring just whites.
Yeah.
And then upping the route threshold, so you only lose 3 units instead of 6. So then it's like, well, you only lost 3. You should be okay, versus, oh, my whole team's injured and this and that. I can't do anything.
Yeah, it's points worth considering.
Yeah, definitely.
For all of the community when GameNet finally does release his suggestion, and people get to comment on it and see what they think.
Yeah.
So do we have any final questions and stuff? Do you have anything that you want to add? Anything that we haven't brought up right now? We have not really come out with a concise suggestion. Yes, you might want to limit veteran points. Yes, you might want to overlook the point system and specifically give rewards and maybe something to catch up for losers and rewards for winning, of course, to make it enticing to
yeah.
win all the time.
You might want to split leagues as well, like just to quicken up the thing. That's the thing we might see as well.
Yeah,
I think we've given some concise points that might be worth considering.
Might see that, removing some of the rules, restricting DLC units a little bit, starting at level 5, still level 0 units. That's pretty much what's been going on here, unless I'm missing something.
Well, yeah, I think a big thing we talked a while about was making the tournament the big carrot on a stick, as the saying goes. You know, the big reward there is making sure you want to win, so you get rewarded.
Put some more emphasis on that particular point, but I still like the reward on getting an extra veteran point or something like that. I think that's a clever reward to dole out, and maybe an extra PvE. Maybe you can restrict it to a normal mission, or maybe that's impossible. But
we also talked about like choosing your opponents or the map. I think those also were quite clever.
Yeah, and choosing the map itself.
So we talked about smaller leagues. Do we like that we got like a winners league and a losers league? I actually kind of like that. I think it kind of
I kind of like that too, actually.
Self-corrects a lot of the power creep, you know?
Yeah, but I do want something to be done about the upper division, and just let you know.
At the moment, like the thing is, like, you win a lot of games, you're gonna have tougher competition. You want to have like, okay, you'll win a lot of games, you have tougher competition, but you'll get this as well. You know, something that gives you like, again, the incentive.
Yeah, so I suppose Game Night needs to come out and say what that would be. Yeah. So because I feel like there should be a point to winning the upper bracket for sure.
We've given a few suggestions, so you know he has a good pool to pick from.
Yeah, so far he's only said that winning is the honor of is the honor itself.
Yeah.
But
golden cookies.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, but that's only for the tournament, and I feel like that's the problem. Like, for example, players might not put out the best teams because they just want to save their best guys for the playoffs, especially facing Kittenpaw or me. So.
And that's not going to be a fun tournament to play in. You know.
Yeah, and that's just gonna power level the top players even more, by the way, because they get less and less competition, so they can just level up more.
They'll always get the objective, you know.
Did we think there should be PvE during the tournament portion or not? Since if you're eliminated, who cares if you have PvE?
I think if you have buys, I think it's a good system. If you don't have buys, then you really need to warn players that they need to save up Wordstone, etc. to live through the playoffs, because there might be things coming up. They need to save up a lot of gold to afford injuries and
that might be like
other
an
things.
issue in itself.
Yeah, to pay your units. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that too.
Yeah,
so I think having a few PVs, having a few PVs might be worth it, just to keep the gold and everything going.
We didn't talk about this, by the way, but do you like there was an idea floating around that they might limit the missions that you can do to only normal missions. Is that a good idea?
Riorren, you need to say something here.
Nope. I really enjoy that I can take more difficult missions, so I can get that experience that I'm lacking, so I don't get even further behind that I already am. I have had to take a deadly at least once, and only done brutal to catch up to actually come to close to rank 6 warband. So I would rather not be limited to normal missions.
Yeah, I like the risk and reward of deadlies and brutals and so on. I think it's always like a way of like, do I want to play safe or do I want to play, for the reward, the possible things I can get? And I like that. Like, if you get a bad deployment on a deadly or on a brutal, even like that can can really be pretty hard on your band.
I have to say that I think I'm a little bit worried. That's why partly we're doing this broadcast, because I think that when Game Night has been cooking up these new rules, I know he's gonna put them up for input from everyone else, but I know that he has expressed the opinion that we shouldn't have done it this way, 1 PvE and then 2 PvEs for the loser. he says that we should have done it that the losers get 1 PV and winners only get 1 PV every 3 wins. And I feel like that just penalizes winning even more. But what do you guys feel?
I mean, I would have no money and no stone. I would just, my warband would have been broke.
Yeah, my warband would be even worse because at least you have like the movement to maybe get a few stones in your PvPs. But my band is very slow, and you know, there's like I'm getting like half across the map in like 3 or 4 fucking turns. You know, it takes so long for my warband to get anywhere. So if this were the case, I would be more than broke. I would be like in debt.
I think
Well, I'm sure.
I think the problem is
Okay.
that for some players that only wins, with a 5-4 victory as well.
And I've noticed as a hidden game mechanic, it doesn't tell you during the deployment screen in PvP, like this is a good wordstone, good loot map, or exceptional and good. But you can tell. I've done enough where you open chests and everything's white, and you're like, obviously this is a poor. And then you see the stones, there's clusters, and it's like, oh, this must have been a good stone map. So it's totally random what kind of stones you get in a PvP, because I've had plenty of desyncs. You load the map again, and it's like suddenly there's half as much stone. So you can really kind of get punished by that, too.
Another thing that helps with level 5 warbands, by the way.
So just having the PVs is a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I'm just worried that while Game Night's suggestion, it will actually make everything more balanced, but it's because it's a self-correcting idea, because if the more you win, the further you get behind, so eventually you start losing just because you get behind.
Yeah.
So you're just penalized more and more for winning, so that you eventually get back into the same line as everyone else.
Can I throw something totally radical out here that here at the end? I just thought of it. Why don't if you have like littler leagues, let's say you'd have to do 4 or 8 team leagues. Set up each league as like a micro tournament. So you have, let's say it's 8 for simplicity. You have 4 matches, and then just have the winners play the winners and the losers play the losers. And have it finish out that way. Could that kind of self-level and correct bands somehow?
That is the definition of getting a pyramid, no? Because eventually you have one guy that has won every game on top.
You'd have to do the 2 PV in between, or you'd have to then shuffle the league again. I don't know. I was just trying to think of a way to make winners play winners and losers play losers during an actual league somehow.
Well, yeah, there are systems like this that do that.
We're doing it is we're waiting until 11 matches have occurred and the team's like really beaten down. Then he finally gets to play other losers. I think that's been part of the problem too.
So really in this one as well, like splitting the league seems like a good idea.
Smaller leagues make sense because you can put losers together quicker and winners together quicker and keep reshuffling maybe.
You're really organizing the thing a bit better. I'll just make everything a bit more balanced. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, maybe. I forgot what this kind of group system is called. Is it Swiss system? I think it's Swiss system. Swiss system is that they... I believe it's Swiss system, which is that you do play someone that has the same kind of score as you. So if you have 2 wins and that one has 2 wins, then you both have 0 losses, then you play each other and then you just walk yourself up all the time.
Yeah, so people with the same amount of wins meet each other. Yeah, that's a Swiss system.
Yes, so you always face someone with the same kind of ranking, or as best as can be done.
Yeah.
Self-correct in a lot of ways.
In some ways, yeah, it is. Although what happens when, one player maybe wins every time and then he still has to play only 2 players every now and then, the second and the third alternatively.
Yeah.
You don't get too much in the way of variation at the bottom and the top after a while.
Yeah, I think that like you can't make this thing like drag out too long. After a while, you'll have to get into like the last tournament phase where everyone like kind of like pulled together and you know,
You'd only maybe
they
do a
can start
couple
eliminating players.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to start eliminating.
Hey, you know,
players. Wow.
someone's gonna win this. You know, it can't be avoided. I mean, so someone will win and have more power per se, but I don't know.
Can can we round off with something completely random?
Sure.
Do you guys have any suggestions for an additional rule in this league right now? Is there something that, because Gimlet still has the time to implement something for the second league and before the playoffs? What do you think that should be, if anything?
I like the second chances. Like if you split up like the last tournament phase where we'll have the playoffs, the way that like one good incentive for actually playing well and getting up into if you split up into an upper and lower division, the guys that come into the upper division who played well and won a lot, you know, they'll get a second chance. I like that.
Okay, so you want to place every single person in the upper division, or just the top
No.
6 or something?
I'm thinking like if you just like in this in the first league phase now, depending on how well you've played, you'll be placed into an upper and lower division. In the same manner, you'll be placed in an upper and lower division for the playoffs, and then you'll have it so that if you're placed in the upper division, you'll have a second chance. If you lose once, you're fine.
So I want to
And then if you're
clarify
placed in the lower,
here
you'll
that
lose.
you don't actually mean division. You mean a
Bracket.
double elimination system, and you get into the
Yeah.
winner's bracket and the loser's bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a very common esports thing to play with the double elimination system. It's the most common one, and well, one of the most common ones, and we've just tried that in level 10 tournament scene, and I think it was a good.
It's common for a
thing.
good reason, and I feel like it's very solid.
Yeah, that could be a good thing, maybe. The top 6 getting up into a winner's bracket.
It's an easy way to give an incentive for the upper division and even lower division players to actually.
And then you incorporate Kittenpaw's idea too, that players in the lower bracket, they do get to play more games.
Yeah. Okay. Someone else? Kittenpaw?
Well, yeah, along those lines, I think if you say now, hey, the playoffs, here's why you want to rank highly, I think it takes away the like drama of, oh, you tried to lose or you did this or that. Playing for now. And then so if someone brings blues instead of purples, it's like whatever. They made a strategic choice at this point. They knew if they got in the top 6, then they got this reward, and you know they're taking this risk or that risk. Because it, like I've said, I see the whole league portion as like a precursor. It's just setting everything up for a final elimination tournament. And how you get there is how you get there. Reward's great enough in the tournament portion. I don't think you can complain too much if someone throws a match here or there, because it's going to punish them in the end, you know.
If you have incentives, so you're sort of on the same line as Hole-Poker, that you want to.
I want them to come out. Yeah, I want them to come out and say, "Here's why you want to win," before you know, and start setting up the tournament now, so it doesn't happen in the middle when everyone's already played 6 matches or something, you know.
All right, and Riorren, do you have anything?
Well, the reward system we talked about, like where you can switch people out in the tournament, or just an extra PV or something to get in essential, like to give to the top 3 in the next league.
Yeah, or just 4 and 6 could also maybe get something. I don't know.
Of course.
Just to
top 6
a little bit. Yeah, but okay. So you're all on the same point here, and I would actually go with the same advice. I also wish that they did something for the upper division that incentivizes people to play at their best, and I think that's really missing. And maybe go out with how the playoffs is going to be played out, and maybe incorporate that in the incentive system too.
Can we talk about one last thing then that I think might become a problem that I think we could see now is, what do we think is going to happen to the poor bastards that finished like 10th, 11th, and 12th in the winners? I've talked about that, you know, off recording. But they're probably going to be worse off than the first place, second, third place finisher of the losers bracket. So, in all of this, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they might be. They will have a lot of PvE games, but they might be.
Well, they'll be playing with full rank 10. I think there's a big difference between playing with rank 10 warbands, where you have more chance to just lose all your like 5, 6, 7 rank units over and over. It's going to be so much harder to recover this late into the. More painful to lose a unit now than when you're, your second match, obviously.
Maybe they will manage their losses. They still have 8 reserve slots that they can put in with some sacrificial units that they try to lose.
Saying is, I want to see 10th, 11th, and 12th place finishers in the upper division still more than the person in first, second, and third in the losers. And I'm worried that maybe not the case right now.
So that just extends the incentivization here, that everyone in the upper division gets a little bit of something that's an advantage compared to the top
Yeah,
four
I
in
guess
this
I'm
class.
saying we should think about those guys too while we're thinking about it.
All right. Anything else to add before we finish this?
I think I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much, Kittenpaw, for joining us.
It's been fun again.
Thank you very much to Hole-Poker.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for the
And
opportunity.
those were all of the players that actually. No, wait, Riorren. Thank you very much for joining us too.
No problem. It was fun.
And yeah, you have to have a little bit of fun. And thank you, Karond, for being here too. I guess myself.
Nope.
That is talking in third person. We might see another one of these sometime later. Who knows? And thank you for listening in, and hope you enjoy the rest of the Bodyhood Brawl League season. I'm renewing my XSplit Premier license, so I'm gonna be casting a lot more games coming forward here in the both lower and upper division and posting them, and I will see these 3 players in those games. So see you later, and thank you for listening in. Farewell.